This histology video will discuss the upper portion of the digestive system. And here we'll be looking at the tooth, the tongue, specifically the taste buds, three types of salivary glands, the parotid, sublingual, and submandibular glands, and then ending with the stomach. The components of the tooth are the enamel and dentin and pulp cavity, the regions, the crown, and the root, and then we'll be discussing the gingiva. I will actually be using a model to demonstrate the location of these structures because the histology slides that I have found do not all have all of the features that I want you to be able to identify. The tongue is a muscular structure, and we'll be looking for the taste buds. They're located on these peg-like structures called papillae, and most of the taste buds are located on what are called circumvallate papillae, or sometimes just vallate papillae. Then we'll be looking at the salivary glands. Salivary glands are made up of clusters of cells called acini. One cluster would be called an acinus, several is an acini. And we have two types. There are mucous acini and serous acini. And the mucous acini are always associated with a serous demilune, which is one single serous cell. And by the name demilune, you can kind of get the idea that it's going to look like a little half moon. The three glands are the parotid, sublingual, and submandibular glands. And just some things to remember, I usually like to think about the submandibular gland first because it's what's considered a mixed gland. And it's about 50-50 mucous acini and serous acini. Then the parotid gland is 100% or nearly 100% serous acini, and the sublingual gland is nearly 100% mucous acini. So I'll give you an idea of what you're looking at if you look at how many of the mucus and the serous acini you can identify on that slide. Looking at the stomach, the first things we're going to be looking at are just the layers of the stomach wall. The layers of the digestive tract are divided into the mucosa, submucosa, muscularis externa, and serosa. So we'll be looking at those four layers. And then some other features. The mucosa is made up of simple columnar epithelium, which almost all look like goblet cells. And the goblet cells produce a mucus that is going to be able to protect those simple columnar cells from the acidic contents of the stomach. We'll be seeing some gastric pits at the end of these simple columnar cells that are going to lead down to some gastric glands. And the glands are where the hydrochloric acid, intrinsic factor, pepsinogen, and some other digestive hormones are being produced. Then as we look at the muscularis externa, we will look at three different layers of muscle: an inner oblique layer, middle circular, and outer longitudinal. And these are the slides that I will be using. Although remember that the tooth, I will not be using a slide, I'll be using a model from the practice anatomy section of Mastering A&P. For the tongue, stomach, and parotid gland, I'll be using the Ohio State University Medical Center. And then for the submandibular and sublingual gland, I will be using another school's website down here. So let's look at the structures of the tooth. First, we can identify the enamel, and you see how it turned blue as I kind of moused over it. The enamel is on the exposed surface. This is kind of the white portion that you see on a tooth. That is protecting this structure called, or this area called, substance called dentin. Dentin is very similar in composition to bone. It's just not arranged in the osteon formation that you might be familiar with when you think about bone structure. And at the very center of the tooth is this structure called the pulp cavity. And here we have, you can see we have some blood vessels and nerves running through there. Now the different regions, we have the crown, and the crown is the top portion. Again, really the part that you can see. So from the very tip down to the end of the enamel here, and kind of where this turns blue. Then there's actually a neck region. The part where it narrows right here is called the neck. And then everything below that would be called the root. And the root is the part that is embedded in the bone. On this model, you would not be able to see the gingiva. Gingiva just means the gum. I'm going to go back a slide here. And again, we really can't see the gingiva here either because this is just showing bone structure, but the gingiva are the gums that are covering this bone. And so the white area that you see here is the crown. It's also the enamel. Then you can see the pulp cavity surrounded by the dentin. And this would be the root portion that is kind of coming down into the bone structure. Okay, I've come to the Ohio State University Medical Center website, and this is a slide of the tongue. This is all the skeletal muscle down here that allows you to be able to move your tongue. But what we're looking for are these papilla on the surface. So this is the outer surface of your tongue here. And these kind of peg-like structures are the papillae. And then located on these papillae, and here most of them are at the base, I see these little structures here, and these are the taste buds. So they're kind of almost oval or grape shaped, and there would be a little hole right here and right here. The food has to dissolve and be able to come down into this groove between the papillae, so they have access to this taste bud, and that's what allows you to be able to taste. So as I go out again, this is the surface. Here's the groove in between the papillae. These are the taste buds located here towards the bottom of that groove. On this slide of the stomach, here we'll be at this low magnification, we'll be able to see the different regions. All of this area here, from this dark purple to kind of to the end of this darker purple area, is the mucosa. Then this kind of connective tissue area in here is going to be your submucosa, right there. And then from here down almost to the outside is going to be your muscularis externa. And we're going to look at the 3 different layers that make that up. And then the very outer layer is going to be your serosa. So let's zoom in a little bit here. These are the gastric glands, where we kind of see these darker areas here. These are the gastric glands, and there are going to be channels that lead up to the surface here that allow the secretions from the gastric glands to enter the stomach lumen. The epithelium here is a simple columnar epithelium, and we can kind of see the nuclei are all in a row here. So that tells me that this is simple columnar epithelium. And I actually don't see separate goblet cells throughout here, because the top portion of all of these cells have a mucus secreting portion that kind of replaces the separate goblet cells that we would think about in a simple columnar epithelium. And again, that is protecting this epithelium from the acidic contents of the stomach. So that was the mucosa from here down to the end of these glands, these gastric glands here. Then we have this area of connective tissue right here. This is the submucosa, and this is on a fold, so you can kind of see how there's actually some mucosa here as well. And all the way underneath there is your submucosa. Then in this region, starting here, it kind of does go up a little bit, starting here, I have my muscularis externa, and there are 3 layers. This first layer is the inner oblique layer. Then this layer here that looks like it's running side to side is the middle circular. And then this smaller region right here, it's not very big, is the outer longitudinal layer. And then this area covering the outside is the serosa. Right here is the serosa. So as I zoom back out, I have serosa. From the outside, I have serosa, muscularis externa, submucosa, mucosa. Okay, let's talk about the salivary glands here. This is the submandibular gland, and I've gone over to MedPix, which is another website here to view this one. And remember that the submandibular is the mixed gland, where it's about 50-50 mucus acini and serous acini. And this white, sometimes described as frothy appearance or soapy appearance, this cluster is a mucus acini. And then this dark kind of half-moon structure on top of it is the serous demilume. If I called these two looking cells the mucus acini, then this is the serous demilume. If this is a mucus acini, this is the serous demilume. So they're always associated, mucus and serous cells together. Then these clusters, these darker staining clusters over here, are going to be your serous acini. They are going to look about the same color as your serous demilumes, but they're all in a cluster, and they'll have like a little hole there in the middle. So this is a serous acinus, this is a serous acinus, here's another one there. These are the ducts. They're going to be collecting the secretions, the saliva, and delivering them to the mouth. So this is the submandibular gland. Here is a sublingual gland, and the sublingual gland was almost all mucus acini, and so again we see these kind of white or light staining structures, again sometimes described as a frothy appearance, but this is the serous demilume here. They're not as big as they were in the other slide, but a mucus acini with a serous demilume, mucus acinus with a serous demilume, and I don't see any serous acini on this slide, so this would tell me that it's almost nearly 100% mucus acini, which would tell me that it is the sublingual gland. For the parotid gland, I'm back over at the Ohio State University Medical Center, and as I zoom in here, you can see that all of the acini here are more of a darker staining. Here's a duct. There's some adipose tissue, so you can see some light areas, but all of these clusters here are serous acini. There are no mucus acini visible here on this slide. All serous acini. So I hope this presentation helps you identify some of these structures of the upper digestive tract.